Hey guys, welcome back to the shop and part 2 of finishing up this table saw base. Now before we get started and jump right in, I wanted to answer one question. We had some comments and everything in part 1, but one comment stuck out. Somebody said that, or asked if since I'm building this base, does that mean that the outfeed table and the accessory wing that I built, are they useless now? Absolutely not is the short answer to the question. I'm going to go in a little bit more detail. I've got the outfeed table detached right now because I need to have access all around the base and everything. When everything's said and done, that outfeed table is going right back into place. The accessory wing with my router table and this pull-out arm support, that's there right now because I need to be able to get the measurements for the cabinets underneath and stuff. But no, those two features are permanent features of this table saw, and the base is just another feature. So now that that answers that question, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to get started on making the drawers for the cabinets underneath. In order to determine the overall width of my drawer, I'm going to take both of those slides and I'm going to put them on one side of the drawer box. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from the inside of the opposite side of the drawer box to the outside of those drawer slides, and for me it's 16 1/8. And that'll tell me that my drawer has to be 16 1/8 inches wide in order to fit in here with those slides. Now the same method is going to apply for all of the drawers on the bottom of the base. So I'm going to go ahead and get those measurements and get started. Alright, when it comes to the drawers, I'm starting at the bottom of the base and I'm working my way up. Now all the drawers are different sizes except for two. They're actually the same size. But even though different, the joinery is the same on every one of them, and I'm using simple rabbet joints for my joinery. It's a good joint, it's a strong joint, and it's an easy joint to make. But by all means, it's not the only joint out there. You've got a lot of choices. But for me, it's the way I'm going to go. Now, I've got all the parts cut for this drawer. The only thing I need to do now is cut the 1/4 inch groove in all 4 pieces that the bottom panel will fit into. But before I break the saw down to cut those grooves, I want to go ahead and get the rest of my drawer parts cut out and get the rabbets cut in, because I'm currently set up on my saw to cut those rabbets, and I've got everything tuned just right for a nice rabbet joint, a nice fit. So I want to go ahead and get all those rabbets done first on all of the drawer parts. Then, and only then, will I break down my saw and get set up to cut the grooves. So let me get the rest of those parts cut out, then we'll get back and get the grooves cut and get the bottom panels in. I've got my drawer temporarily clamped up now because I need to go ahead and get the measurement for my bottom panel. Now a quick tip for getting that measurement is get yourself some material, some scrap wood that is about as thick or a little bit thinner than the groove that is cut into each of your drawer pieces that your bottom panel slides into. And get yourself 2 pieces and slide one on one side, one on the other. When you got them both in there, clamp them around the middle, and then you can take and measure from one end to the other, and that'll give you your width of your panel. Do the same thing for the length. Fit it inside those grooves, clamp it together, and then take that measurement. Transfer those measurements to your material that you're going to use for your bottom, and go ahead and cut it out. Alright. Alright, for the bottom panels, I'm just using 1/4 inch thick plywood, and I've already got them cut down for the drawers. Now all I have to do is get them inside of the drawers and get everything glued up. Alright, if you remember in part 1 of this build, I talked to you about an angled drawer going down in this middle section here, underneath that ramp where the dust collection is. Also, if you remember when we built the base, I used my tapering jig that I had modified. I put a cross piece in here to open up the angle a little bit more to get that angled cut for that ramp. Well, I'm going to use the same jig and the same setup to cut my drawer sides, to cut that angle on the drawer sides. Now the angle will start a little ways into the drawer. I'm going to have it straight and then it's going to angle down, so that way the drawer, when it's closed, fits nicely under that ramp area. Well, in order to get that angle cut, all I have to do is simply use the jig that I used before. Everything is the same. I've got my fence set up, got the blade ready. All I have to do is make the cut. For these drawer slides, I want them a 1/2 inch up from the top of the drawer or the top of the case, whatever the situation may be. I've already got a lower drawer installed here, so I need a 1/2 inch space between there. What I need to do is, or what I'm going to do is just take 2 1/4 inch pieces of plywood and place them in there and install my drawer slide. Now once both slides are installed, which these are, I can then take out this little 1/4 inch piece. I'll leave this one in here, and I have another one on this side, and that will give me my spacing for my drawers. Now I can take a drawer, slide it in, bring my slides out just a little bit, and go ahead and get my first screws in, pull it out a little further, get my second screws in, then I can put the third and final screw in each side, and that will give me my spacing for each drawer. Once I have the drawer completely attached, then I can go ahead and remove my 2 spacers. So now with this 3-sided box mounted in here that closes in my router, I'm able to put a little port in the back for some dust collection. And now all I need to do is build my front frame here, my face frame that'll have my door that'll allow me access to this. Also, as you may be able to see right here in this cubby hole, this is going to allow me to make a small drawer here for some bit storage and everything. And I've still got some room up underneath here to do a shallow drawer and with some accessories, or you know, maybe I can use it to store like different jigs or something, you know, sleds. So right now it's a matter of just getting everything kind of buttoned up, and that's what I'm doing. I'm closing up the case. I've got the sides on, I've got part of the back, I'm working on the other half right now, and then I got to make a little access panel back there where the dust collection is going to be. And I'm going to talk more about the dust collection and what I've done for it in just a little bit in the video. But right now I want to go ahead and kind of start getting things buttoned up, because I want to be able to focus on the drawer fronts and the dust collection, and that will pretty much wrap up the project. Okay, well, the whole complete back is finished. I've got everything framed out for my door, and I'm getting ready to put it in, but I want to do it last because I need to go ahead and put my outfeed table on. If you recall, on my outfeed table there's that sliding dovetail leg, and there's a bracket that gets mounted on this base that supports that leg. I need to determine exactly where to mount that bracket before I put the door in, because the bracket may be right here in this area, and if it is, then I'll need to frame it in lower. So once I get that figured out, then I'll do the door last. But while I have everything open, I thought I would show you exactly what I did inside the saw to direct the dust down and what's going on with this dust collection and how it's going to act. Well, before the dust port broke, it used to be mounted here, and it came right out the back of the saw. Well, without it there, dust would just fly right out, and I need it to fly down. So what I ended up doing was I took the shroud off the side of the blade, which is not a problem. It doesn't hurt anything at all. And here, where the old dust port mounted, I took some sheet metal and I curved it downward, and I mounted it here in place. So as the sawdust flies, it hits this and directs it down into the below area. Alright, well that's the inside of the saw. The only thing left to do on the front of the saw is to build the drawer fronts, and I'm going to use some of the select pine that I have. I happen to have just enough to build all the drawer fronts for these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drawers. I had to count them. The one thing I really like, I've already got some stuff in the drawers. I was just testing everything out, but I really like the full pull feature. I have complete access from front to back of these drawers, and these big drawers holding quite a bit of stuff. For the upper box, the drawer fronts, I'm going to simply just screw into place, and I'm going to use a tip that I picked up from Steve Ramsey when he made his router cabinet. If you guys saw that video, he used a couple of quarters to space the drawer fronts, and it was a nice even spacing. So I happen to have 2 quarters in my pocket, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. Alright guys, for the bottom 3 drawers, the final 3 drawers, I've got one done, but what we're going to do is, what I'm doing is insetting some of this melamine into the center as a center panel to tie the base in with the top of the saw. Now the joinery for my frames is half-lap joints, real simple to construct, easy to do. I'm going to walk you through those steps in just a second. And then the panel is inset by cutting a groove in the back of the frame and on the face of the panel on the outer edges. It allows that panel to sit in to this frame a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and get set up to cut the half-lap joints. We'll walk you through that, and then I'll show you how I get this panel in. And then all we have is 2 more drawers and a door over here on the side for the router, and we're all done. For the drawers, I'm using 2 different sizes. I'm using a 1x8 and a 1x4 to make the frames for the long drawers, and I need to do half laps for them. Because of the different spacing for the half laps, I made up a little jig, just simply a board with a half lap cut in it that fits the size of the 1x8, and then the other side is the size of the 1x4. So this way I can take this scrap piece that already has a half lap cut in it for the 1x4s, slide it up to my blade, and lock my stop block in place so I have a perfect positioning. Now I can do the same thing for the 1x8 by using the other side of this scrap piece of wood. And I've got it cut out for a perfect half lap, so everything is nice and flush when the 2 parts are put together. So I've already set my blade height, and now that I have my stop block locked in, I can go ahead and make the half laps for all of the 1x4 stock, and then I'll reposition my stop block for the 2 1x8s that I'm going to be using in the 1 door frame. So this is my first 1x4 set of half laps, and I just wanted to show you, this is the scrap piece that I had. When everything comes together, you'll have a nice flush joint on all sides and all the edges, and that's what you want. Alright, well, while it's not raining, I'm going to try to finish up this project. This thing has been crazy storming here in Florida. I've got one of the drawer front frames clamped to my table here, and I'm about to route out the groove on the inside here. I'm using a little palm router with a little edge guide to cut a 1/2 inch wide groove, 3/16 of an inch deep, because my 3/8 inch panel, I want it to sit halfway in to this frame a little bit, so I'm only going to cut my groove 3/16 of an inch deep. Now after this is done, then I'll get my panel cut down to size, and then we'll go ahead and we're going to cut a rabbet around the outer edge of that as well. And I'll show you that next step when we get to it. But first, let me get this inside frame finished. Okay, now I'm going to take my 3/8" melamine that I have here, get my panels cut down, and then we're going to switch over to a dado stack, which you don't need a dado stack. I always try to remind you guys, because I know in some places you can't use dado stacks, but you can do it with a single blade the next step. But I'm going to switch over to a dado stack and cut the rabbet around all 4 sides. And again, you can do the same thing with a router or with a single blade. So let's go ahead and get the panels cut down to their final size first, and then we'll switch over. Now I'm using a 1/2" dado stack in the table saw that matches the 1/2" router bit that I used to cut the groove. Now I have a template here on a scrap piece of melamine with the blade height and the depth that I need. So all I have to do is just lay that on the table, and I can adjust my blade accordingly as far as the height I need. For the positioning of the fence, I'm simply just taking my piece and I'm bringing it over to the very outside edge of the blade, and that'll tell me where I can cut my groove, and then it'll cut both sides with that one fence position. So now with that rabbet cut all the way around all 4 sides, it also gives me, by opening this up a little bit, it gives me a glue surface that I can glue this panel inside of this frame here. So with all that done, now all I have to do is snap it into place to test it out before I glue it, and it gives me a nice inset style panel. Alright, so now to do the other one, get them glued in and let's get them attached. So while those drawer fronts we just cut are drying up, let me show you what's going on over here at the router side of the table. Now my pull-out support arm is not in right now, so I can show you what's going on. But over here, you know, I built a router box for the router, and I simply have a door on here with a piano hinge. I cut a groove on the inside of this frame and put in some 1/4" plexiglass so I could have a visual of what's going on. Right now I'm getting ready to epoxy in the rare earth magnets. I've already drilled the holes for those, and that will keep the door shut. Over here, where this knob is, I have a long pull-out drawer, and this is where I'm going to drill some holes in here and store a lot of my major router bits, my tongue and groove bits, my raised panel bits. On the back side here, I've got a little arm that allows me to pull this drawer all the way out without it tilting or moving or anything. It just kind of catches it. Now a lot of the bits that I use right away, or a lot of, are on a front rack mounted, and I'll show you that a little bit later. But right now, this is what's going on over here. I need to go ahead and get those rare earth magnets epoxied in, and we're good to go on this side. Now on the left side of the table saw, I just have a couple accessories hung up. I've got my miter gauge hanging here, as well as a couple of blades, some extra blades that I use. Now for the blade storage, I simply have a 1/2" dowel drilled into here, along with a rare earth magnet. And the rare earth magnet keeps everything nice and tight, so there's no rattling or anything. Alright, so now on to the most important part of the saw, the dust collection. Okay guys, let's talk about the dust collection for a minute. Now on the back of my base, I wanted a 4" port. Because I plan on getting a bigger dust collector. In my small shop before, I didn't have room for one, and I had one, used it one time, really brand new, and it was just too big. It was taking up much room, so I got rid of it. Now I'm kicking myself in the butt, which I would have kept it. Now I have it reduced down to 1¼ inch hose, because currently I'm using a shop vac that has 1¼ inch hose, and that's what I've been using. But I do have it reduced down currently right now because that is my dust collection. And for the size, the shop vac is doing an adequate job. Now I do have a shutoff gate here because I plan on piping over to the router table. The router box will have dust collection. Alright, this is the back of the saw. As you can see, it goes through my shutoff gate and reduces down to 1¼ inch hose. But coming out of the back of the saw, I do have a 4" port. Up here I have a 1/4 threaded knob that goes through into a threaded insert in this little hole right here, and that's how I keep everything closed. Now, of course, my ramp, I had to notch out here a little bit in this MDF for the curve of the port, so when everything is closed up, it sits nice and flat and the door shuts nice and flat. Because this is at an angle, this was bumping into it, so I cleared that out. I just have a reducer that reduces everything down to a 2-inch port, and my dust gate reduces down to the 1.25 inches. So that is how, for the time being, I have everything connected together. Then of course my 1.25 inch hose plugs right in there. And that's it for the dust collection. Again, guys, I really thank you for sticking with me through all of this. I hope you enjoyed this build, and I hope you pick up something from this. If you have any questions, ask them down in the comment section, because I'm going to be doing a follow-up here in a couple of days, probably a week or so. I'm going to get used to it, get it packed up and nice and stocked, and then I'll do a follow-up and a rundown on it. So any questions you have on the table saw base, that would be a perfect time for me to answer them. Again, thank you, and as always, until next week, see you soon.